The Nigel Farage Show.
Good morning, everybody. Well, I was there on Thursday night at the European Summit in Brussels, at which the British Prime Minister was treated once again in a totally humiliating way. Do you know, throughout this process, we have conceded to them again and again and again. And the one time that the British Prime Minister needed just something back in return, they weren't prepared to give a bean. And of course it went on to a midnight press conference with Jean-Claude Juncker calling the Prime Minister nebulous. And she did have a little bit of a go at him the next morning, and he denied saying it. Mind you, it was after a good dinner. How would he actually remember? I mean, if I'd been Mrs May, I'd have got up and walked out of the whole thing. Once again, a British Prime Minister being insulted. I'm not a Mrs May fan, as any regular to this show will know. But when she goes abroad, she is our Prime Minister. She is our leader. And I thought it was pretty shameful, frankly, the way, once again, she was treated. But I began to understand at the summit the reason they didn't want to give a bean, the reason they would not budge. And it's actually quite simple. Barnier's strategy at the very beginning was he didn't think there was a chance of reversing Brexit. He didn't believe a second referendum was even possible. But what he did want to do was try and keep us tied to the EU single market and customs union rules. That was his ambition from the start. But they've changed their mind. They now think that a second referendum is possible. And they could see the trouble Mrs May was in with her deal. And it suits Brussels now for Mrs May's deal to fail. Even some suggestions that, you know, if we perhaps needed to extend Article 50, they might even refuse that now by saying, well, hang on a second, there is, of course, a European Court of Justice ruling from 2 weeks ago that says you can revoke it, cancel it unilaterally. So I sense the noose tightening around Mrs May in every single way. And that led me to conclude that I really did need to say something more on this subject. So on Friday night, I was in London at a Leave Means Leave get-together. Labour MPs, Conservative MPs, myself, businessman Tim Martin from Wetherspoons on the stage. And this is the conclusion, folks, that I have reached, given that I now think it's impossible for Mrs May to get her deal through. This is what I think is now the most likely thing to happen.
I don't think that the great Brexit betrayal is anywhere near finished. And I am now more fearful than I've been at any point in this process, that outrageous, monstrous though it is, we're going to finish up being sent back for a second referendum. And I can see the collusion that is going on between Monsieur Barnier and many of our British politicians and many of the multinational businesses, and what last night was all about, actually, why they were so rude to her, why they're now even saying that maybe Article 50 could not be extended. We just need to take the European Court judgment of outright rescinding it, is they know that is impossible for this country to accept. As much as I don't want a second referendum, it would be wrong of us here on a Leave Means Leave platform not to get ready. We must not fail in our preparation. We really must not do that, because I fear they'll do this to us. And if I'm wrong, we've lost nothing. We've now got to move into a different gear. We've now got to start forming branches and active groups all over this country. We've got to be out there.
Well, initially, an audience of Leavers were horrified to hear me saying that I think the most likely outcome is a second referendum. But I've just about had enough of being told by Tory Eurosceptic MPs, it'll all be OK, Nigel. The legislation is in place. As things stand, we are going to leave at 11 p.m. on March the 29th with a no-deal Brexit. And listen, I have got no problem with that, and some very strong words written in today's Sun editorial. Britain has nothing to fear from a clean exit. Articles by Charles Moore, David Davis, talking about this. And look, I have no problem with a negotiated no-deal Brexit, by which I mean, of course, we talk about flights and we talk about border controls and how we're going to register goods for tariffs, but we leave on World Trade Organization trading rules. That, at the moment, it seems to me, is the only way that anything like the Brexit people have not just voted for in the referendum, but of course also voted for in the general election. I think it's the only way that it can actually be delivered. But our political class do not agree with Brexit. And all of them, you know, whether they're outside the House of Commons, like Tony Blair and Alistair Campbell, Lord Adonis, or whether they're inside the House of Commons, whether it's the Chucker Ramooners or the Dominic Greaves, I mean, all this talk about a second referendum, it's got nothing to do with democracy. I mean, these are the very same people who opposed us having the first referendum. They want to overturn the result. And I now think, look, given all the options in front of us, I now think that a second referendum is the most likely outcome. I repeat, I don't want it. I think it's outrageous. I think it could damage our democracy. That is what I think. Please tell me, am I right or am I wrong? And if you can ring up on 0345 6060 973 and tell me, Nigel, you've been smoking something funny and you've got this wrong, I will be delighted. If, however, you suspect that I'm right, and you may think it's a good thing, please text to 84850 and let me know your thoughts on what this means for trust in our democratic system by tweeting using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and of course Facebookers, you can comment there too. That's what I think. What does Ben, a new caller from Lincoln, think? Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, Nigel. How are you?
Well, I'm all right. I mean, I'm not exactly thrilled with where we are with all of this.
Me neither.
I mean, it's awful. But Ben, that's the conclusion I've reached, and I'm saying it because the other side are well organised. The other side are well funded.
They are.
They, from June the 24th, 2016, said, we will overturn this result. And frankly, if a snap referendum was called, I mean, it obviously takes more time than that, but if a referendum was called at short notice, they are ready to fight it. And my fear is that the Leave campaign is not sufficiently organised or mobilised.
Well, I think you're very much right. They are organised, so organised, in fact, I don't think they'll hold a second referendum unless they know what the result is beforehand. I think this will be the most rigged referendum in British history. It will be rigged. And as a result, I think if you campaign in it as if it's a normal referendum, I think that will be a mistake. I think that will lend legitimacy to their betrayal.
Let me just stop you a moment, if I may. When you say rigged, do you mean in terms of the question?
No. I think they will rig the vote. I think they will go out all the way. We're up against an empire here. The European Union is the new Rome. They will not stop until the province of Britannia is part of their realm forever. They will.
But Ben, we've beaten empires. We've taken on and beaten empires in the past, albeit at great cost.
That's what we should do, Nigel. What we should do is we should never engage with this second referendum. We should say no, it's illegitimate. We can't do it. And ultimately, if they do hold it, I think we need to blockade the polling stations. I think 17 million of us need to get out there and not let anyone in to vote and say, this is wrong, this is not legitimate. We had a vote. We had a bloody vote. It's the only vote I've ever won in my entire life.
Yes. I mean, Ben, I obviously can't agree with blockading polling stations, but what I will say to you is this. If the question, and it's the one being mooted by Sir Vince Cable, if the question was Mrs May's deal against Remain, then I would boycott the referendum,
yes.
and I would urge everybody to boycott the referendum,
yes.
And I would hope that Parliament would pass an amendment that said that unless 40% turned out or 45% turned out, the referendum would be illegitimate. But Ben, if they give us... Look, and again, I want to re-emphasise, I hope I'm wrong. I hope we leave on WTO terms, and I should be delighted. But if I am right, and they force it again, and if the question is Remain or leave with whatever deal, then if we just...
Then it's Remain and Remain, isn't it, really?
Well, no, if the question... I mean, the problem, Ben, of course, is we'd be handing back, if we win this again, even by a bigger margin, we hand it back to the same group of politicians who rejected it last time.
Exactly.
And I do get that problem. But, Ben, if we are presented once again with a binary choice, and if we choose not to engage with it, they will win by... I mean, we'll have lost, won't we? By default.
Quite correct. If we simply boycott it, if we simply do nothing and say, no, we're not playing anymore, they'll laugh at us and they'll say, oh, look, we've got a 16 million margin for Remain. How fantastic.
Well, maybe.
Of course they will.
So maybe,
this is
Ben...
why we need to stop them doing it. Ultimately...
So Ben, what is your... OK, now, I listen, I understand all the things, and I get the passion in what you're saying, but what do you think needs to happen for us to become an independent country?
What we need is a parliament that will carry out the will of the people.
I think that's right. And is that going to mean that our political parties need to break up as they are, and we need to coalesce around a new political party that will deliver Brexit?
That would require a new general election. I mean, I would just like them to do as the bloody vote told. Excuse my French.
No, it is very early, and it is Sunday, Ben, so wash your mouth out with soap and water, but I understand what you're saying. Ben, ultimately... I think, you're onto something. In the end, we need members of Parliament that do actually respect the wishes of the electorate, and we've expressed this twice. Once in a referendum, and once again in a general election. Ben, I thank you for your call and for your passion. Folks, tell me, I fear we're headed down the route of a second referendum. I don't know what the question will be. Some people are saying it could be sort of multiple choice with 3 or 4 different choices. Please tell me I'm wrong. Please tell me there isn't going to be a second referendum. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's now 10:15.
This is LBC.
It's the most wonderful time of the year and the most stressful. And can we stop those bells, please? But relax. Free inside Sunday's Mail on Sunday, we're giving away a superb stress-busting Christmas colouring book. 16 pages of stunning, soothing Johanna Basford illustrations for all ages, including brand new designs exclusive to the Mail on Sunday. Draw the stress out of Christmas with our brilliant free colouring book. Free only inside Sunday's Mail on Sunday.
Your future is here. The Global Academy, a forward-thinking state school for 14 to 19-year-olds interested in a media career. Visit globalacademy.com to find out more.
This is the sound of the Birch family kayaking down the River Dee, North Wales. Only a skimming stone's throw away from a Holiday Inn hotel. What are you doing this weekend? It all begins at holidayinn.com.
At this time of year, there's always one person who's difficult to buy for. That person who seems to have everything. If you're looking for something truly unique this Christmas, then Weber has the gift for you. The Weber iGrill. The thermometer that ensures you serve perfectly cooked food every time. The iGrill connects to an app on your smartphone. Simply tell it what you're cooking, how you'd like it cooked, and the iGrill will tell you when your food is ready. Serving excellent food has never been easier. Find your perfect gift at Weber.com.
You know that feeling you're getting about the Liverpool United game? That's me. I'm your hunch. I'm pumped because this one's going to shake up the season. 2 of the big boys, head to head. And as if that's not exciting enough, Betway are offering Bet 5, get 10 on it. So listen up. There are a lot of things I need to talk to you about. Heed your hunch with Betway. Get a £10 free bet when you bet £5 on any Bet Your Way market on Liverpool United.
Single bets at odds of 2 to 1 or over. 18 plus. T's and C's apply. Bet the responsible way.
For hundreds of years, Indian food has been about sharing great food with the people you love. For over 5 years, Manjal Restaurant have brought North and South India together in the heart of London. And due to its success, now we've come to Chigwell Loughton. Experience the essence of India and make memories with Manjal. Book now at manjalrestaurant.com.
Make Christmas a little special with a 1 litre bottle of White & Mackay blended Scotch whisky for $15.99. Greenall's Wild Berry Gin just $11.99. And Bacardi Pina Colada only $7.99. Ice in a slice makes all things nice. Lidl, big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability, selected stores, excludes NI in Scotland.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
So, coming back on Eurostar on Friday from that summit in Brussels, it seemed to me pretty obvious that our political class will betray fully the result of the referendum and force us to do this all over again. And blow me down if the front page of today's Sunday Times is not. David Lidington, May's deputy in all but name, held talks with Labour MPs on Thursday in an effort to build a cross-party coalition for a new vote. The article goes on to say Gavin Barwell, the number 10 chief of staff, told a cabinet minister last week that holding a second referendum was the only way forward. Now, Gavin Barwell has tweeted this morning in response to this and said he's not himself had meetings with Labour MPs or anyone in terms of planning a second referendum. David Lidington has been very quiet. And Amber Rudd yesterday said in the Daily Mail that she was seeking a cross-party consensus to try and find a solution. Folks, the solution they're going to find is that they don't like Brexit, they don't want us to leave on the 29th of March at 11 p.m, and they're going to make us do this again. I think it is an outrage, but I believe it's the most likely outcome. Tell me I'm right, tell me I'm wrong. Let's go to Blackburn and speak to Keith, a new caller to the show. Keith, good morning to you.
Good morning.
So do you think my analysis is right, Keith?
Yeah. No, well, it is. I am a Remainer, and I didn't want a second referendum because I didn't want the first one, and I thought it'd be a bit tricky of me to want a second referendum.
Mm-hmm.
But with the way that the ERG have acted, with the vote for Theresa May, they haven't accepted it. If Margaret come out and said, we're not happy with the vote, but we accept it, and we want to do all we can for Brexit to get a good result for the British people, I won't want to take a referendum. But he hadn't. He's turned out, she should resign and all this. So if he can't accept it, or the ERG, why should Remainers accept the result?
Okay, no, well, I mean, I don't think the ERG are, I mean, they're relatively important within the Conservative Party, but, I do understand what you say, a result's a result, and yes, there has been, in fact, in the Conservative Party, quite a few people who've become even more militant since she held that position. What he did say, Keith, was that Margaret Thatcher faced a similar situation and did resign, which, of course, is absolutely true, but if you take Jacob Rees-Mogg out of this, Keith, what do you think in a town like Blackburn? What do you think a second referendum would do? Do you think people would be happy, or would it just make divisions in your community even worse?
The divisions now, and people wouldn't be happy because of the situation. A lot of people voted for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And that, it weren't all about the EU, it's about people's lives having nothing, and they were promised a better life, so people vote for a better life, don't they?
They do, but Keith, we are quite a divided country at the moment, and I think a second referendum would be very nasty indeed.
So do I, but what do you do? Someone's got to give.
Well, you could, Keith, given that we had a referendum and we voted for parties in a general election who said they would honour the result, we could just leave, couldn't we?
Yeah, but people voted in the general election for different reasons, not just...
I do accept that. I do accept that, but, you know, both the parties were pretty clear. Keith, I thank you for your call. I'm going to move on to Audrey, who's new to the show and lives in Edinburgh. Good morning.
Hi there, Nigel. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cough this morning.
Bless you.
I think you're absolutely right. I think we will be forced to have a second referendum. It's what the EU does, vote and vote again until you give the answers that they want.
Yes, we've seen it before, haven't we?
They have form, this is what happens. I think, though, I think that the guy that phoned earlier and said that it would be rigged is absolutely right. it will be rigged by the question. They'll probably have 3 questions, which means that the one to leave will be very much diluted down because there'll be 2 others that, dilute things down.
I mean, what was suggested, Audrey, was that you leave with no deal, you leave with Mrs May's deal, or you remain, and of course the leave vote would then be split. But Audrey, surely our esteemed Electoral Commission would not allow this to happen.
I think anything could happen. I really don't believe a word that comes out of Parliament, Mrs May's mouth. The only time she doesn't lie is when her mouth isn't moving. I mean, really, I've lost all respect for any of them. I really wouldn't know who to vote for.
Audrey, she's a vicar's daughter. I mean, what are you saying?
People now are saying, they feel sorry for her because she's so tenacious. I don't want a leader who I feel sorry for.
I couldn't agree more.
Somebody who's going to lead us.
I couldn't agree more. Do you know what, Audrey? I couldn't care less if our leader was a right so-and-so, as long as he or she was straight with us and gave us proper leadership. And whether you like them or not, both Thatcher and Blair were leaders. They said what they were going to do, and they went ahead and did it. This woman says one thing and does the opposite time and time again.
Opposite. But, Nigel, I don't want a second referendum. I think it's entirely undemocratic. It should never happen. We were told that Parliament wouldn't make the decision. We made the decision.
Absolutely.
And that's going totally against what we were told. But now we're not stupid or bigots or racists. We're actually extremists. We're fanatics.
Oh, yeah.
They've changed the language.
It gets worse by the week, doesn't it?
But, I think the public aren't as stupid as they think. And I'm speaking to friends who voted to remain, and they're saying they would now vote to leave because of the undemocratic process. So, be careful what they wish for. They might get a big surprise.
Do you know, Audrey, if they force us into this, I have a feeling that the vote will not be so much about the European Union, but about how we feel about our politicians. And they might just get the biggest 2 fingers we've ever seen in this country's history. Audrey, thank you. Nigel, you must stop, I get by text. You must stop telling people you think there will be a second referendum. There are some people that are gullible and don't realise we can make the politicians do what we want. Well, we've done that already, but they're not listening, are they? And I know there are lots in my Leave camp who think I shouldn't have said this, that we should just keep quiet, pretend it isn't happening. But I tell you something, the reason that you build an army isn't because you want a war. The reason you build an army, actually, it not only acts as a very good deterrent to stop the other side from coming after you, but also it means that you're prepared. And the other side are funded and prepared. A lot of cynicism out there too. I think any new referendum would be weighted in the Remainers' favour. They will stack the deck. And just the fact that I'm getting these responses shows me how low trust in politicians today is. I would argue it's the lowest I've ever seen in my lifetime. Ivan is a new caller from Brighton. Hello, Ivan.
Hello, Nigel. What a beautiful morning.
Well, I saw the pictures of Brighton yesterday. It looked awful down there.
There's beautiful sunshine right now.
Right, very good. Well, come on then. Now, brighten up my day, Ivan. Cheer me up. Tell me I've got this completely wrong.
Well, you mean about having a second referendum?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong. I voted Remain. I was a Europhile, but I definitely do not want a second referendum. We decided that's it. Okay, we got to get on with it. Leave. I'm so infuriated by the stench of the last 2 years. I've become a Reminger.
Right. Okay. Explain that fully to everybody.
Well, if anything, I think you're right. Everything is now weighted in favour of the Remainers. They'll try and rig it. If there was to be a second referendum, we were forced to it would have to be May's deal or leave. End of story.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
Because we already decided and they just ignored it. So no, think again. It's nonsense.
Yes, we've made the big decision. Yes, as you say, we've made the big decision in terms of the direction we're going in. A second referendum could choose the exact route to get there. But Ivan, I think that's a very, very fair point, and enjoy the sunshine and seagulls in Brighton this morning. Thank you. Stephen is a new caller from Marlborough in Wiltshire. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, Nigel. I think you're being slightly disingenuous.
Oh, really?
I do.
On a Sunday morning?
On a Sunday, on the day of the Sabbath.
Right, come on then, Stephen, far away.
Okay, so you've used two phrases this morning. I fear a second referendum, and please tell me that a second referendum is not going to happen. However, if I can quote a senior politician back in 2016, in a 52-48 referendum, this would be unfinished business by a long way. If the Remain campaign wins 2/3 to 1/3, that ends it. You use those phrases.
I did, and if only you would quote the rest of the article, which said there would be some in the Conservative Party who would be unreconciled to it. I accepted in that interview that there would be no prospect of another referendum for 20 years.
Correct, but there wasn't a 2/3 majority, and if the roles had been reversed, you were quite happy to push this country and advocate a second referendum.
No, Stephen, there wouldn't have been Stephen, there wouldn't have been one for 20 years. And I tell you something, had Remain won by one vote, we wouldn't even be discussing a second referendum, would we?
Oh well, I think we would.
Well, of course we wouldn't, because 75% of MPs support Remain.
So I used to sit on the branch executive of a union, and for major changes to legislation, to our rules, we actually needed to have a 2/3 majority because it was seen as such a fundamental change that if you didn't have that kind of a majority to change the basics on which the union operated, then that simply wasn't going to cut the.
But our democracy, Stephen, is it when it takes all, isn't it?
I completely accept that, and I think in the next few years there's going to have to be potentially a change to some sort of proportional representation in all this.
Yeah, I agree with you. No, we found a point of agreement here, and then maybe we'd vote for parties we agree with, rather than voting for parties we dislike a little bit less than the other one. Stephen, time running out, just very quickly, do you think the second referendum will happen?
I voted to Remain. I'm not completely happy with a second referendum, but I don't see that there's any other way of breaking the logjam within Westminster.
Yep, and we'll vote 52-48 again to leave, and they'll probably go on ignoring us. Stephen, thank you. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's 10:30 and time for the news with Philip Chrysikos.
Education Secretary Damien Hines says another Brexit referendum would be divisive, as Theresa May's Chief of Staff Gavin Barwell denies plotting one. Separately, Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon says Labour's planned no-confidence motion in Parliament would help clarify Labour's position on Brexit, even if it failed to topple the government. Ice, snow and freezing rain has caused delays and treacherous driving conditions across the UK brought in by Storm Deirdre. The conditions are also being blamed on keeping shoppers away from high streets and retail parks on what should have been one of the busiest shopping weekends before Christmas. Chester Zoo says it is overwhelmed by offers of support after a large fire yesterday. It's trying to raise £50,000. So far, its online fundraiser has made £10,000. LBC weather, snow clearing Scotland, cold with showers spreading west to east across England and Wales, a high of 11 degrees.
This is LBC.
Glasses for dogs, an alarm clock on wheels, a fork and knife rolled into one. Surprisingly, all successful business ideas. Office Outlet is obsessed with supporting businesses and has everything you need to start and grow your idea. And if you enter the Office Outlet Big Ideas Fund competition, you could win 6 months office space, one-to-one mentoring, £5,000 cash and more. To apply, visit officeoutletbif.com. Office Outlet Big Ideas Fund. Create something special.
Wrapping up warm and setting off for a good country walk. Winter is the perfect time for creating great stories. So start yours with Cotswold Outdoor. Right now, you can save up to £50 on selected jackets. Discover everything you need for your winter adventure with up to £50 off jackets from the best brands, including Berghaus, the North Face and Mountain Equipment. Cotswold Outdoor. Find your local store at cotswoldoutdoor.com.
It's the most wonderful time of the year and the most stressful. And can we stop those bells, please? But relax. Free inside Sunday's Mail on Sunday, we're giving away a superb stress-busting Christmas colouring book. 16 pages of stunning, soothing Johanna Basford illustrations for all ages, including brand new designs exclusive to the Mail on Sunday. Draw the stress out of Christmas with our brilliant free colouring book. Free only inside Sunday's Mail on Sunday.
Your future is here. The Global Academy, a forward-thinking state school for 14 to 19-year-olds interested in a media career. Visit globalacademy.com to find out more.
Constipation relief has me singing with glee.
Strutting my stuff for the whole world to see.
Senecot Max, help me feel free.
Natural Senna.
Double strength
Helped us back to normality.
It's how a
wonderfully
regular life could be.
Senecot Max Strength is twice the strength of Senecot tablets. For short-term occasional use, always read the label.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Well, I fear a second referendum is coming. I think that's what our political class will do to us. Doesn't have to be, of course, because the legislation that's in place means we leave at 11 p.m. on March the 29th on WTO terms, which I'm very, very happy with. It delivers the result. It makes us free. It saves us 39 billion. We can do our own trade deals, catch our own fish. What's not to like? But hey, we'll debate that issue more fully another day. But I do fear that second referendum. Tell me whether I'm right or wrong. Now, I was in Strasbourg earlier this week, where, of course, there was a terrorist attack. Took quite a long time to catch the gunman. Some quite serious questions about the way the police raided his flat when he wasn't there and in many ways activated him. But France, not a happy place. And amazing, 6 weeks ago, Emmanuel Macron was lecturing the world on the dangers of nationalism and the need for the new world order. And he, of course, has also been talking about more discipline, particularly within the Eurozone. Well, let's have a little think about Emmanuel Macron's week and what happened with the yellow vest protesters yesterday. I'm joined by Peter Allen, LBC's Paris correspondent. Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel.
So tell us about the concessions that Emmanuel Macron made earlier this week.
Very broad and really rather startling concessions when you consider what they're in response to. He's increased the national minimum wage over here by a full 7%.
Wow.
He's taken taxes off bonuses. He's taken taxes off pensions. He has scrapped green taxes. There was meant to be extra money to be paid on diesel and petrol on January the 1st. That's all gone as well. It's all going to cost him at the minimum something like 10 million. He's not saying where it's coming from. He hasn't costed it properly. He's not brought back a wealth tax. Incredibly generous, all in response to now 5 weeks of constant disturbances, including some very ugly rioting in Paris yesterday, which I witnessed at first hand.
Yeah, I'll come back to the rioting in a moment. I'm just thinking about this. A minimum of 10 billion extra here, major concessions that he's made. And isn't it funny, though, but he was lecturing all the members of the Eurozone about the need for discipline. And, of course, the Italians had their budget rejected. Is it possible that with what he's done, that France itself could now be in breach of EU guidelines?
It certainly could be. Remember, this is a former merchant banker, a former finance minister, admittedly in a socialist government, but he was never socialist himself. He was meant to be a fiscally responsible financier who could come in and sort out the country and do what generations of French presidents have failed to do, which is to reduce the public service, to get France's books right. He hasn't done any of that.
No.
And again, he's now capitulated to rioters by spending money.
So he's made massive concessions, and yet, Peter, they were back on the streets of Paris and elsewhere yesterday.
And they will continue to be, I think, Nigel. There were 168 arrests yesterday, which was admittedly less than last week.
Still a lot,
about 750, but it's still a hell of a lot. And I can tell you, if you were in Paris yesterday, a major European city,
at Christmas time, when all the shops should be open, everybody should be having a nice time. It was quite incredible. It had a sort of Cold War Eastern European feel to it. It really was unbelievable. 8,000 security agents right in the centre of the city, armoured cars on the street, tear gas everywhere. Everybody had to show their passports, passes to get through from one road to another. Bag searches, you name it. Incredibly sinister. And this is Paris at Christmas.
I saw water cannon being used. It must have been quite cold for the protesters, I would have thought.
Indiscriminately, water cannon was being used everywhere, even though it was pouring with rain and freezing cold. I mean, you normally associate riots like this with the summer, but this was a very, very cold day in Paris. Water cannon everywhere. And again, Nigel, armoured cars, actual armoured cars as well.
Yeah. And Peter, just tell me finally, how does this end, or do they just keep on doing this?
They'll keep on doing it in one way or another. Obviously, Mr. Macron will be hoping that because there were less arrests yesterday and there were probably less protesters on the street, if not less police, that it will slowly fizzle out, especially as we move towards Christmas and the weather deteriorates. But it won't be far away. There are a lot of people who are still very, very unhappy with him. And indeed, all the institutions of the Fifth Republic, they want a Sixth Republic. They want complete reform. And if he keeps spending money like nobody's business, I think he's going to find himself in very, very deep economic trouble, as well as all the other troubles he has.
Fascinating. Yeah. Peter, thank you very much indeed. Well, that's Peter Allen, LBC's Paris correspondent. A very, very unhappy week in France, and despite huge concessions, they're still out there protesting. How angry are we going to feel if we're forced into a second referendum, given the first one has not even been delivered? I fear a second referendum. Tell me I'm right, tell me I'm wrong. I'm off to speak to Kira, a new caller in Wembley. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. So what, do you think I'm right? Do you think there will be a second vote?
I hope there is going to be a second vote.
You hope
I find it quite, yeah, I do, and I find it quite amusing, the fact that you're so anti it. So I was looking for a video resource because I'm teaching globalisation, and I was trying to find like an extreme nationalist view. So obviously you came to mind.
Oh, really? Really? And where would that come from? Some sort of left-wing Marxist textbook that you were reading or something?
Oh, no, I've read quite a lot. I've read around because I'm a teacher. I have a master's degree as well.
Lucky kids. Yeah.
Yeah, very. Thank you.
So I believe in nation... Please explain to the audience why nation-state democracies should surrender their law-making ability to people like Mr. Juncker. Please explain why that's a good thing for democracy.
Okay, so let me finish the point I was making and then I'll answer your question. So I looked it up and I found a clip of you talking about the referendum before it happened, and you were saying that it would not represent the will of the people if 48% of the population voted to leave and 52% voted to remain. So I find it incredibly
But I didn't say there'd be a second referendum, Kira, and we've done this already earlier in the show. So now you think I'm an...
video of you directly saying that.
Well, I bet you haven't got the whole video, because I said there wouldn't be another referendum if that was the result for 20 years. And here we are, without this referendum even being enforced, and there's a call for another one. Now, I want you to explain to us why belief in nation-state democracy is an extreme opinion, and why we're better off being governed from the European Commission.
Okay, it's interesting that you're saying that we're governed from the European
Well, who
Commission.
makes the laws?
So the people who make the laws in the UK is the UK government. The UK Parliament is sovereign. So the government does have that ability to create our laws. Most of our laws do come from our own government, not from the EU.
Oh, no, they don't.
However, and one of the things that I find quite distressing at this time is that we're debating and saying that the EU should not have our control over our human rights, and yet the EU human rights stem a lot from British people and British ideas. People like John Locke, if you look.
Well, actually, Kira, we have common law, and they don't have common law, which is why, in Spain you can be chucked in the nick for 2 years without even facing a charge, and we have habeas corpus.
Yes, exactly, which is exactly what you're saying. It's Magna Carta. So we have the rights that we have still are from our government, our traditions, and our history.
Unless a European arrest warrant is issued, and then we suspend everything we've stood for 800 years, and you can just be deported and chucked in a Greek prison.
Very interesting that you say that as well, because obviously since the terrorist attacks in England and Tony Blair's government, he himself has tried to detain people without evidence. potential terrorists. And the EU was the actual organisation which preserved habeas corpus in that case.
Very funny. Ciara, thanks. It's absolutely laughable. You know, case after case of British citizens being kept in prisons, particularly in the Mediterranean, without even charges being brought for months or perhaps even years. I'm going to move on to Diana, new caller in Lymm in Cheshire. Good morning, Diana.
Good morning, Nigel.
So, is this second referendum going to happen? Have I got this wrong? Are we going to leave maybe on WTO terms?
We are not having a second referendum, Nigel.
Oh, good. Oh, right. OK, good. Tell me what's going to happen
We
then.
are not. Article 50, thank you to the lovely Gina Miller, is set in law. And at the end of March, we will leave. We've had a deal for 43 years with the European Union, a pretty bad one, where we've been net contributors to the contributions of their coffers, keeping them all in Brussels there, and all we've suffered is a growing biblical balance of trade deficit. We voted either leave or remain. There was no alternative deal on the paper. It's either leave or remain.
I understand all of that. I understand all of that. But if we accept that Mrs May's withdrawal agreement is not going to pass in the House of Commons, and you know, do you accept that premise?
Oh, it won't pass.
Right, OK,
Do you
fine.
know what? I actually think she's either very, very stupid or she's picked her battle well. And I think she's dragging it out till the last minute. And hey, there's not enough time to do anything about anything.
Well, that is one school of thought. And look, there are voices like Jeremy Hunt today who clearly is saying, look, no deal is better than a bad deal. And I guess maybe this is his pitch to become the next leader. But, Diane, you know, the European Court have said that Article 50 can be simply revoked. Now, perhaps the irony of the Gina Miller case is that the Prime Minister can't do that on her own. She would probably need to go to Parliament to get permission for it. But,
exactly.
But what if there is a chance of us leaving on WTO terms and Parliament is given the opportunity, and I've no doubt the Speaker would play a big role in this, to seek either a revocation or a suspension of Article 50 pending a second vote? What could we do to stop it, Diane?
I'm unsure about that.
Well,
I think if we get to the end of March, Nigel, we're there.
Well, no, I agree with that. No, I agree with that. I agree with that. But what I'm saying is, I don't think our political class and their multinational bankers will allow that to happen. Diane, I thank you for your faith. I am not as trusting. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC, and it's now 10:45.
LBC at the weekend. Majid Nawaz.
Hate to say I told you so, but for around a year, I've been predicting Leavers and Remainers will end up united against any deal that comes back. And the reason is because it's going to be one compromise too many for the Brexiteers and not enough compromises for the Leavers, to the point where in the end, no one's going to be happy.
Leading Britain's conversation. Majid Nawaz. Today from 12 on LBC.
Join Clive Bull every Sunday evening from 6 for the Consumer Hour on LBC.
Is this a common problem, the disputes over whether something arrived and the couriers and who's responsible?
When you order anything online, the delivery company is contracted by the retailer, and the retailer is responsible for that order all the way up to the point where it's delivered to you. So if it goes missing in delivery, the retailer is responsible.
The Consumer Hour on LBC with Which. Impartial advice, investigations and reviews. Keep questioning. Wrapping up warm and setting off for a good country walk. Winter is the perfect time for creating great stories. So start yours with Cotswold Outdoor. Right now, you can save up to £50 on selected jackets. Discover everything you need for your winter adventure with up to £50 off jackets from the best brands, including Berghaus, the North Face and Mountain Equipment. Cotswold Outdoor. Find your local store at cotswoldoutdoor.com.
Working at a 24-hour BP, you see some pretty strange things. Just yesterday, Mrs. Claus came in with 10 Santas. They spotted our 2 packs of Lindt chocolate for £12 deal and started singing Joy to the World. Mrs. Claus conducting. Guess they really love chocolate.
With 10p off per litre when you spend £20 in store and tons of great deals, it's surprising what you'll find at BP M&S this Christmas. Subject to availability while stocks last. Offer ends 3rd of January 2019. Participating service stations only. Terms and conditions apply. See bp.com for details.
Constipation relief has me singing with glee.
Strutting my stuff for the whole world to see.
Senecot Max, help me feel free.
Natural Senna
Double strength
helped us back to normality.
It's how a
Wonderfully
regular life could be.
Senecot Max Strength is twice the strength of Senecot tablets. For short-term occasional use, always read the label.
Stick the kettle on, Mum.
Oi! What did your last slave die of? And why is that rucksack so full? Is that your washing? That better not be your washing.
It won't take you long, will it?
It won't take you long, you mean?
Samsung Quick Drive washing machine gets laundry really clean, really fast. Search Quick Drive from Samsung, winners of the 2018 Which Large Home Appliance Brand of the Year award.
I think I'll just leave it for your dad.
Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
I concluded on Eurostar, coming back from Brussels on Friday, that the most likely outcome of all of this was a second referendum. Outrageous, though I think that is. And this morning, on Sky News, Joe Johnson confirms discussions ongoing with cabinet ministers about holding a second referendum. And that's what's going to happen, folks. Many in the Labour Party and the Conservative Party will come together to try to force us to vote again. I don't like it. I think the implications for our democracy are grave. I think it will further increase division and distrust in our country. I also think it'll deliver the same result, if not by a slightly bigger Leave margin. I wonder then whether they'll listen or they'll call for a third referendum. Maybe our whole politics needs to be completely changed. Anyway, that's what I think is going to happen, and I wish I didn't think it. David says on Facebook, not without an election first, so we can weed out all the lying politicians who were elected by deceit. But David, how would you know? I mean, because all of them sitting there were elected on general election manifestos saying they would honour the result of the referendum, and they're not doing it. Deborah says, if we are made to re-vote on Brexit, we should re-vote on no confidence. No trust in Westminster. They make it up as they go along. Malcolm says, I think the Westminster bubble will move heaven and earth to engineer a second referendum. So do I, Malcolm. They have never forgiven us for voting Leave. How dare we? Malcolm, that is exactly right, and that is what you're really seeing now. Absolutely writ large, confirmed by Joe Johnson this morning, and stories in this morning's newspapers. This battle's now becoming entirely clear. It is people versus the politicians. That's what it is, and that's what a second referendum will be. And maybe, just maybe, all of those in Cabinet and in the Labour Party who want this second referendum, they may live to regret it. That's my view. I'm off down to Grays in Thurrock to speak to Andrew, a new caller to the show. Good morning.
Hello there, Nigel. Good morning. I've got a couple of quick points to make to you. I was at the Friday night event, the first time I've ever been to any political event.
Oh, wow.
And I heard something at the end from John Longworth, and you've hinted at it yourself this morning, which is the need for a new political party. And I sincerely hope, as I think millions of others must do also, that you will upgrade Leave Means Leave to create a cross-party National Democratic Party and movement, which would be the special purpose vehicle to restore and constitutionally secure national democracy in this country. Otherwise, it seems to me that 17.4 million voters are severely at the risk of being disenfranchised. And it seems to me also that at the very least, such an NDP might hold the balance of power next time round. And this needs to be done soon so as to advise the EU that an NDP or some other vehicle would reject Mrs May's treaty should it be passed, should it be signed. Because obviously that puts us in an otherwise irrevocable and severe condition. Can I just say also on the second referendum...
Let me just pick you up on those points first, Andrew. Otherwise, I think people will sort of lose it. Well, number one, thank you for coming along. And the one good thing about all of this is that people are engaging with democracy and with debate much more than they've done for many, many decades.
Yeah, well, I'm not fatigued by the Brexit fiasco that we've had. I'm actually energised, and I think an awful lot of other people are as well, as they get increasingly angry.
I tell you what, Andrew, if I look at the switchboard here at LBC, I don't see much fatigue. I see a huge amount of passion on both sides of the argument, to be absolutely fair. Andrew, Leave Means Leave is a cross-party campaign. It's cross-political parties. It's got business.
And that's its great merit.
Yeah. So Leave Means Leave is not going to become a political party, but that's not to say there won't be. And whether it's a National Democratic Party or whatever it is, that may well happen. The difficulty, though, Andrew, you talk about the balance of power. You know, no one in modern times knows more about taking on the electoral system in this country than me. You know, in 2014, I led UKIP to winning, coming first in the European elections under a PR system. The next year, I didn't get quite as many votes, but just about 3.9, we'll call it 4 million. And just one seat. So it's very, very tough to break the system. You know, you can get millions of votes for almost no seats, and that's the problem. But anyway, coming on to your second point about... So anyway, I've concluded, Andrew, and you probably don't want to hear this from me, but I've concluded that this is what our political class are going to do to us, and I hope I'm wrong.
But, Nigel, what I would say on the second referendum is I would urge you, if you accept, as I don't and many others don't, if there were to be a second referendum, it has a fatal flaw that should disqualify it anyway, which is that if the first isn't to be honoured and respected and enacted, why on earth should anybody respect the second? That is a recipe for civil disorder. And on the question itself, you shouldn't accept the idea of no deal as being the only leave option versus the other options. Why should you squeeze the leave vote? We all know that for the past 2 years, a Remainer Prime Minister and a Remainer Cabinet and a Remainer Government and a Remainer Parliament, etc., including even a Remainer Bank of England, for Pete's sake, have all basically plotted to reverse the outcome of that referendum.
Andrew, the only legitimate second referendum would be, do we leave on Mrs May's deal, or do we leave on WTO terms? Because we've already voted to leave. Now, if they wanted to consult the public on that, and I don't think they need to, but if they did, that would be legitimate. And you know, the other option, of course, Andrew, is that you rerun the question that was asked last time.
Well, effectively, I was going to say that. Essentially, you should not squeeze the leave vote by saying it should only be represented by no deal.
No, I agree with that.
Essentially, you get back to leave versus remain, and we've already had that one.
Well, I suppose if they did rerun it, they could ask the same question again with a second question. If you are voting leave, which option do you want? I don't know, Andrew, how they're going to do this. What I do know is if they ask us a question between Mrs May's deal and Remain, we will have to boycott it. Andrew, thank you very much indeed for all of that. Chris is a new caller from Sheffield. Good morning, Chris.
Oh, hi, Nigel. Nice to speak to you for the first time.
Good to speak to you.
I suppose I'm a typical Leave voter from the north, voted Conservative historically. Whether that's a typical Leave voter, I don't know.
No, Chris. I mean, please don't forget that there are 5 million people who voted for Corbyn who the year before had voted Leave, and many of them in your part of the world.
Yes, exactly. Well, I'd like to make 2 points. One about the referendum, and 2 about the political parties. Regarding the referendum, like I say, I voted Leave 2 years ago, and I now feel that I really don't know which way to turn with this, because there is so much conflicting information coming out from, obviously, the current government. Labour don't have an answer to it. They seem as in disarray as much as the Conservatives. You have your view. There's many people, all got different views, but nobody seems to be giving us a clear, if we leave in March and we leave without a deal, this will be the benefit to the UK, and we can see that as a tangible thing. If we stay in the agreement that Theresa May's got, that doesn't look ideal. So there doesn't seem to be anything now coming back to say to us, if we make this choice, which we've already made, are we going to be better off as a result of this or not? And I myself, I'm really not sure. And many people that I speak to now have got serious thoughts about are we making the right decision or not?
Well, and that's what Project Fear and the establishment, Chris, want you to think every single day by telling you that you'll be poor, the planes won't fly, millions could die of starvation. I mean, that's what they're doing, isn't it?
if we're the fifth largest economy, or the fourth, whatever it is, then is it now not time, given the current shambles that we're in, with the government tearing itself apart, the opposition haven't got a clue either. We either form another party so that people like myself, who are, we want to grow the economy, but equally, we want the best of both worlds. But we want to make sure that if we're going to leave the EU, it's not going to damage us. And at the minute, you can't trust anything that's coming out from any of the elected parties.
Chris, I get that, and again, the thought of a new party is tempting to you. Thank you. I've got time for one more caller. Paul, a new caller from Burnley. Paul, good morning.
Morning, Nigel. I'm a passionate Brexiteer.
Yep.
And I think there should be a people's vote, but I'll tell you why. It's not for the same reason as Mr. Heseltine and Caroline Lucas. They both said that people should be given the opportunity to change their mind, and they also come out with the line that you measure twice and you cut once. The first people's vote was in 1975.
It was.
We measured, and democracy was enacted. People had over 40 years of EMU membership to carry on measuring. We had the second people's vote in 2016 that we measured then, but democracy has not been enacted. I agree with the people's vote. Once the second people's vote, which was in 2016, has been enacted. People should have the right to change their mind. If they don't, I'll just say this, Nigel. If democracy isn't enacted, never have so many been betrayed by so few.
I like that, Paul. It's a good note to end on. Thank you. And a lot of people, I think, feeling like Paul and pretty blooming angry out there. Now, somebody else who's angry is Theresa May. She is really unhappy, and unusually with a former Prime Minister. You see, Tony Blair, who keeps shuttling back and forth to Brussels, meeting Juncker and Barnier, other heads of state. He wants a second referendum. And the Prime Minister has said that actually it's an insult to the office he once held and the people he once served, namely us. Is Theresa May right to criticise Tony Blair in these terms? 0345 6060 973, text to 84850, tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, watch us on Facebook and comment there too.
On your radio, on your phone, and here.
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 11 o'clock, Theresa May's chief of staff is rubbishing reports he's plotting another EU referendum, saying it hasn't even been discussed at Cabinet. Gavin Barwell's words follow the Mail on Sunday, claiming he's told pro-Remain Cabinet ministers a second vote is the only way out of this. It's as Scotland's First Minister is pressurising Labour into triggering a vote of confidence in Theresa May's government over its handling of Brexit. Nicola Sturgeon says only Jeremy Corbyn's party can bring a motion which is guaranteed to be debated and voted on by MPs.
At least it gets Labour into a position where they can take a decision on whether or not they back a second EU referendum, because it seems increasingly obvious to me that that's the best way and perhaps the only way of making progress and resolving this whole sorry mess.
Separately, Downing Street is dismissing reports people will be advised not to book trips to Europe after March next year. The Sunday Times claims senior officials are considering the advice as part of contingency plans if there's a no-deal Brexit. But travel writer Simon Calder has told LBC he agrees the talk is rubbish.
I only go on what I have been told by official sources, by the UK government, by the European Commission. That, at the moment, says that flights will continue to operate. Airlines are still selling tickets, tour operators are still offering package holidays, and there is no reason that I can see to imagine that those would not go ahead.
And Nigel will continue leading Britain's conversation on Brexit next. A 5-year-old boy has died after being seriously hurt in a house fire in Nottinghamshire. The fire already killed his 8-year-old sister and mother in Collingham yesterday. A man is still in hospital. Police in France say they've they've arrested 115 people in Paris during the fifth weekend of nationwide protests. But the so-called Yellow Vest demonstrations over economic injustice in the country involved far fewer people than last Saturday. LBC's correspondent in Paris, Peter Allen, has told Nigel President Macron has caved in to protesters' demands.
He's increased the national minimum wage over here by a full 7%. He's taken taxes off bonuses. He's taken taxes off pensions. He has scrapped green taxes, all going to cost him the minimum 10 million. He's not saying where it's coming from. He hasn't costed it properly. He's not brought back a wealth tax.
Chester Zoo is expected to reopen this morning after a large fire tore through one of its enclosures yesterday. It says all the endangered mammals, like orangutans, have been found, but some other animals are still missing. More than £20,000 has already been raised online to help Chester Zoo reach its target of £50,000. LBC weather. Snow clearing Scotland, cold with showers spreading west to east across England and Wales, a high of 11 degrees. From Global's newsroom, for LBC, I'm Philip Chryssikos.
Make Christmas a little special with a 1 litre bottle of White & Mackay blended Scotch whisky for $15.99. Greenall's Wild Berry Gin just $11.99. And Bacardi Pina Colada only $7.99. Ice in a slice makes all things nice. Lidl, big on quality, little on price. Subject to availability, selected stores, excludes NI and Scotland.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Well, a very tough week for Mrs May. You know, a motion of confidence vote held in her 37% of her own party in the House of Commons, expressing no confidence in her leadership. Off to Brussels, where she could reasonably have expected just a little bit of help from a group of people to whom she's given absolutely everything, and she got nothing back. She got pretty much abused by Jean-Claude Juncker, although he does that pretty much to everyone, really. And she has a little bit of a tetchy debate with him. But she really saved most of her comments for Tony Blair. Now, let's have a listen to Tony Blair on Friday speaking on the BBC.
This is becoming such a big mess that it's obvious that Parliament here is at some point going to have to grip it. It's then going to have to run the different options, and there are different options. Her deal, a form of Norway, a form of Canada, or if there's no majority for any of those things...
What about leaving?
Then you can go back to the people in a further referendum.
Jolly good.
And, you know, at some point the government is going to have to understand that facilitating that is actually its duty. Because if you don't do that, it would be absurd if Britain crashed out of the European Union without a deal in circumstances where the overwhelming majority of people don't want a no-deal scenario, and when obviously if you come to a choice between a referendum and no deal, it's clear whatever the British people voted for in June 2016, they didn't vote for crashing out of the European Union without a deal.
Tony Blair is the colluder-in-chief. He has spent much of the time in the last couple of years going back and forth, meeting Mr Barnier, meeting other heads of state, meeting other European commissioners, and he is absolutely dead set on keeping us part of the European Union. He is the ultimate globalist. He at one point, of course, himself wanted to become president of the European Union. I think his constant meddling, I find it offensive in every way, but perhaps he is in fact in many ways the great card, could say trump card, of the Leavers if we are forced into a second referendum. And if it's seen that Blair is one of those people that has pushed us there, that will help the Leave vote again, if, of course, that's the option we're given. He doesn't even want to give us that. Well, Mrs May, too, is unhappy with him, and she says for Tony Blair to go to Brussels and seek to undermine our negotiations by advocating for a second referendum is an insult to the office he once held and the people he once served. And for once, folks, I am going to take 100% and support Mrs May on this. When you're the government and you're doing a job of negotiation, whatever your own intentions are, you shouldn't be undermined by your own side. But it's been happening, hasn't it? Not just Blair, but the Adonises, the Cynic Cleggs, back and forth to Brussels, all working together, all initially trying to keep us trapped inside the customs union, now all trying to make it so impossible for Mrs May that they force a second referendum. Is Mrs May right to condemn Tony Blair? I think she is. I really, truly think she is. Enough of this meddling. I wonder what Roger, a new caller from Bodmin in Cornwall, thinks about Mr Blair's statements. Roger, good morning.
Good morning. Regarding Mr Blair, I think, ironically, he actually created Brexit with his policies for his term, as PM. He created Brexit.
Well, by opening up the doors unconditionally to 10 new member states of the European Union. He certainly did, Roger, yes.
Yes. However, I feel, we're having many little marches in London and all this thing going on, and the media generally play down anything that's pro-Brexit. I think that we need to have something far bigger. And I feel Trelawney's army back in the 1600s marched on London from Cornwall.
They did.
And I think Trelawney's army should rise once again. I actually sent you a message this morning, ironically. But Trelawney's army should march once again from London to Cornwall. Probably a week, 10 days it would take for us to march.
I think actually, Roger, I think Cornwall to London would be more appropriate. But Roger, are you talking about peaceful protest here, or are you talking about?
Absolutely, yes. No,
okay.
No, absolutely. It has to be a peaceful protest, and I think you'd gather massive support along the way. And I would hope that we could have people coming from the north and the southeast and across the country to all merge in London.
And then maybe, Roger, when you arrive in London, Tony Blair could come to meet you, couldn't he?
I'd love that. I've got a few choice words to say about him.
I bet you have. It's Sunday morning, Roger. Enough's enough. Roger, thank you very much indeed. Mark's a new caller from Great Offaly in Hertfordshire. Good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. Yeah, well, I think we can come to the conclusion that while Theresa May is losing the argument, she has to revert to personal insults and mudslinging and scraping the bottom of the barrel. And what is even more disgusting is she aims at Blair, but not a word about John Major.
Well,
even a Conservative Prime Minister who is saying exactly the same.
That's a very, very good point, Mark, because Major's interventions in this debate have been gearing up and up and up to the point where he said just a few days ago we should simply revoke Article 50, cancel Brexit. I mean, he wasn't even talking about second referendum, just cancel Brexit is what Major was saying. So, Mark, I think you've got a very, very good point. If she's going to have a go at Blair, she ought to have a go at Major. But there's one difference, Mark. There's one difference, and it's this. John Major, despite what he said, and I think it's appalling, but John Major has not been running a sort of shuttle service back and forth between this country and Brussels. Tony Blair has.
Well, I think you're underestimating what Mr Major is capable of and his contacts throughout Europe. I mean, previous Prime Ministers keep their network, and I'm sure maybe less in private he's been doing something like that. But Nigel, you talked about revoking Article 50.
Yeah.
I found that quite interesting because I'm a little bit intrigued about what you've been saying this morning, and in particular, you seem to have this thing against representative parliamentary democracy.
When it no, Mark, I'm all for it, but when it decides on a crucial constitutional issue, that it will give that decision to the people, and it reinforces at every level that whatever decision the people take, it will be enforced and it will be carried out, then, Mark, it jolly well should be, shouldn't it?
Yeah, but hang on, Nigel, hang on. As you should well know by now, the referendum was advisory.
No, Mark, constitutionally, that is right, but we were told in a government document, we were told by all the major parties, you decide and we will implement. And that, I think, was a promise that was made not just in the referendum, but in the general election too. And that's what matters, Mark. This is a matter of trust, isn't it?
Hang on. First of all, let's go back to the leaflet. Let's put that into context, Nigel. That was a promise made by a government. It overstood the mark because it wasn't their promise to make, because as we have found out, Parliament is sovereign. It is down to Parliament.
Mark,
no, hang on, Nigel. Let me have my answer.
Do you really think that the public out there thought that the referendum was purely advisory? Do you really believe that?
Well, no. What I believe, Nigel, is I believe because we entrust our vote to our MP in a representative parliamentary democracy, because most people haven't got a Scooby-Doo about representative parliamentary democracy or our constitution, that people have found that crack and started feeding in propaganda. So they're trying to make out this was a direct democracy exercise which was enforceable in law, which of course it wasn't. You've had plenty of Tory MPs say, well, it's a bit debatable.
So should we just scrap it, Mark? Should we just scrap voting altogether, really? I mean, just give up on the whole concept of people being involved in anything. I mean, Mark, you can make a constitutional argument, but my point is that our prime ministers and our leaders of both parties told us they would enact what we'd done, and they're not doing it. That's the point, isn't it?
Sorry, as I just said, Nigel, they can say that red is white, but the ultimate decision is the Parliament's. And let me just put that... Now, hang on, Nigel, let me finish now.
I hadn't said anything, but I tell you what I would say, Mark. Parliament voted for the referendum and Parliament voted for Article 50. So there's your parliamentary bit as well. What's the problem? So we should leave on March the 29th, surely?
No. What we should do is... I'm going to keep... No, hang on. I understand representative parliamentary democracy.
Well, good for you. Good for you.
Hang on, Nigel.
But what about the average voters who were made a promise? What about... Or don't they count, Mark? Should we just say you're 17.4 million cretins and we don't care what you think?
No, Nigel. Both my father and my brother fought for this country, and they fought against our lifestyle and our democracy system. We do not have a direct democracy system in this country.
We did here.
We haven't had one... Sorry?
We did with this.
No, you did not. Because
all right, Mark, I tell you what, we'll call it a score draw. There's no point in going on. We're not going to agree. Mark making the constitutional point that the referendum was advisory. My point is, actually, we were told it was up to us. Frankie, who's called in from Exeter. Frankie, was May right to speak about Blair in these terms?
Absolutely, but I think it is just words. I wish some people would really do something and properly expose these people like Tony Blair who are pushing this. I know I sound like a far-right conspiracy theorist here, but pushing very much a globalist agenda. I think he's very much...
I used the word not 10 minutes ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he is very much almost still running the country. When he's not just...
Well, he thinks he is.
Well, he's not just going back and forth from the EU. He's still influencing Britain's relationship with countries in the Middle East after the disaster that was the Iraq War. And I think his
peace envoy, wasn't he? He was a peace envoy.
Yeah.
I thought it was a joke
all people,
when I first heard it.
War criminal.
Well, that's a matter of opinion. Frankie, you still think the man has enormous influence, yeah?
Absolutely. I think it's there in the civil service and across the public sector as well. I think this obsession with political correctness, identity politics, diversity very much started under Tony Blair. And we need to expose this and tackle it and other people like him.
Frankie, you're a younger voter, are you?
Absolutely. I voted Green in the council elections, but I am a Brexiteer.
Right. I voted Green once. I voted Green in... I did. The 1989 European elections. They were run by a bloke called Jonathan Porritt, who I thought was really rather sensible. I was always a bit of an environmentalist, and I voted Green, and I'm a Brexiteer too. Frankie, lovely to talk to you. Call us again. You're listening to a Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's 11:15.
This time last year saw the start of a very special event.
And the winner is...
It's my huge honour to present such an important award today.
And now it's back for 2019. LBC and its sister stations from Global are joining together to bring you another unforgettable awards night.
Thank you so very much to everybody who wanted to recognise the work of the emergency services.
The Global Awards 2019 with very.co.uk.
Rewarding the very best from the world of music, news and entertainment.
But who will win? this time.
It's lovely to be recognised.
Thank you very much. You make us all proud.
You can be there. The Global Awards 2019 with very.co.uk.
Get more out of every day.
Coming soon. Keep listening to find out more. LBC.
Winter's coming. Make sure your car's ready with a Ford Winter Check for just £29. Plus, get £10 off your next service when you quote Ford 10 using our new online service booking tool. Book now at ford.co.uk or visit your local participating dealer.
Recommended promotional price including parts, labour and VAT. Not available with any other offer. Terms and conditions apply.
Wrapping up warm and setting off for a good country walk. Winter is the perfect time for creating great stories. So start yours with Cotswold Outdoor. Right now, you can save up to £50 on selected jackets. Discover everything you need for your winter adventure with up to £50 off jackets from the best brands, including Berghaus, the North Face and Mountain Equipment. Cotswold Outdoor. Find your local store at cotswoldoutdoor.com.
As Theresa May holds on to power after the no confidence vote, what now for her leadership of the Conservative Party? And the delayed Brexit deal vote? And Britain's progress out of the EU? In politically confusing times, turn to The Telegraph for clarity. Subscribe now at telegraph.co.uk.
This weekend at the perfume shop, we're inviting you to enjoy buy one, get 50% off second item on perfume. Yes, that's right. Buy one, get 50% off second item at the perfume shop. And we'll gift wrap both items for free. Offer subject to terms and conditions. See our website for details. Ends 16th of December.
You know that feeling you're getting about the Liverpool United game? That's me. I'm your hunch. I'm pumped because this one's going to shake up the season. Two of the big boys, head to head. And as if that's not exciting enough, Betway are offering Bet 5, get 10 on it. So listen up. There are a lot of things I need to talk to you about.
Heed your hunch with Betway. Get a £10 free bet when you bet £5 on any Bet Your Way market on Liverpool United.
Single bets at odds of 2 to 1 or over. 18 plus. T's and C's apply. Bet the responsible way.
Disaster can strike as quick as a flash. Now it's all about damage limitation and having a response team that can act fast. Ideal Response can be on the scene within 2 hours, working 24/7 to ensure damage caused by fire, smoke and water is kept to a minimum. Ideal Response, the 24-hour damage restoration and specialist hygiene service. Our business is restoring yours.
Working at a 24-hour BP, you see some pretty strange things. Well, last Sunday night, this guy comes in to fill up his car. He sees our buy one, get one free on Coke and Doritos. Buys 2 Cokes and all the Doritos. Took him 2 trips to his car. Must have been having a snack attack.
With great deals on Coke, Doritos and batteries, plus 10p off per litre when you spend £20 in store, it's surprising what you'll find at BP M&S this Christmas. Subject to availability while stocks last. Offer ends 3rd of January 2019. Participating service stations only. Terms and conditions apply. See bp.com for details.
Whoa. Shut out the cold with a Ford Winter Check for £29 recommended retail price. Book online at ford.co.uk.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Tony Blair will do anything to stop a true clean Brexit. Theresa May slaps him down. Was she right to do so? And I only have to mention Tony Blair, and the switchboard sort of lights up and starts flashing like a Belisha beacon. He is somebody who attracts still great passion. Nice one, Blair. Keep plodding on. You are helping us levers every time you open your mouth. As I say, he could be our trump card. Before I get back to that story, the sort of comedy moment of the morning, the one story I saw that made me laugh out loud was on page 2 of the Sunday Times. Home Secretary Sajid Javid bids to slash EU immigration by 80%. Oh, come on. Please, pull the other one. It's got bells on it. We keep hearing this rot, don't we? He's going to cut the numbers down to something like 10,000 a year. I mean, it's just not going to happen. It's all rubbish. They tell us this in the 2010 election, the 2015 election, the 2017 election. It isn't going to happen with these people. Oh, I suppose I hadn't thought of it. Perhaps he fancies being the next leader. That's right. Just lie to the party membership. Then they might vote for you. Let them down again. I mean, hey, it's just ridiculous. Roy on Facebook says, what's it got to do with Blair? He's just a private individual Remainer with plenty of money and a self-interest. Well, he's pretty well connected. Roy, and as I say, he's been running a sort of shuttle service back and forth between Brussels and London, and who knows, perhaps much of the rest of the world. Sue says, when we leave, Mr Blair may have to sell one of his many £1 million homes. How awful. William from Newcastle feels quite strongly about this. He says, Blair is a hypocrite who has weakened both Europe and Britain economically and politically. He prevented the euro becoming the currency for trading oil. He also weakened Europe by creating millions of migrants. He created resentment of EU migrants by not capping the acceptance of migrants from new countries. So despite his words, he's actually harmed Europe and is a hypocrite. William, I have to say, I really don't think that Leave would have got anywhere near winning the referendum had it not been for the actions of Mr Blair. Absolutely. And Bob in Wadhurst, responding to a previous caller, says, was the 1975 referendum advisory? Well done, Bob. It's advisory when it suits, and it's not advisory when it doesn't. But hey, I do not buy this argument. I do not buy this argument that because in normal circumstances, you know, we have a form of representative parliamentary democracy, that referendum in 2016 wasn't valid. I don't buy it, and I'm guessing 80-90% of the country would not buy that as an argument. Oliver is a new caller from Derby. Good morning, Oliver.
Good morning, Nigel. Thanks for having me on.
Not one little bit. So Mrs May has really shot back. I mean, actually, if you listen to what she said, Oliver, you know, she says that for Blair to go to Brussels and seek to undermine our negotiations by advocating for a second referendum is an insult to the office he once held and the people he once served. They're very strong words, Oliver, aren't they?
No, they are. I absolutely agree with Mrs May on that. However, I'm wondering if she's doing it to get, you know, because the British public, we're not fools. You know, I don't want her to use this so she can get us on board with her deal. Do you know what? I think if she went out this afternoon, you know, and ran a sub 4 minute mile, I don't think there's anything. Even if she sort of went out and healed the sick, there's nothing she could do, I think, to convince us to support this deal. So that's not the real. I just think, Oliver, she's had a rotten week, and she probably does deserve to snap back at one or two people. But absolutely. I mean, Tony Blair. I mean, he's a bad smell, isn't he? I mean, he just will not go away. But you know, I mean, and this is coming from a former prime minister who's passed, you know, a lot of legislation without our say so. Through, you know, and I know Gordon Brown did it as well. So I really, again, all he's doing is just building.
He was I mean, he was a phenomenally successful politician in his time, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh no, he was. But I think we became wise to him.
Do you know? I watched him. I watched him, Oliver. I watched him. I was there in July 2005. He walked into the European Parliament. He'd taken over the 6 months rotating presidency of the European Union. He'd just won his third election. But he was deeply unpopular in Brussels, chiefly because of the Gulf War decision, which the French did not like, because, of course, you know, they were fairly major trading partners with the Iraqis. And Blair turned up in that parliament, and he stood up and spoke without notes for 40 minutes. He charmed the room. As a performer, he was absolutely brilliant. And we've not seen anybody at the top of our two parties since him with anything like the ability. So he did have something. He had an aura of success about him. But he now looks like I think he now looks like a rather sinister figure.
No, he does. And do you remember? I mean, you won't forget this. Do you remember when he was there at the European Parliament and he said to you, "You do not sit there and represent our country." Well, and do you know what? Well,
do you know something? I think, I may be wrong on this, but I think I'm the only person Tony Blair has actually shouted at in public. And it happened because he'd been up negotiating all night. He'd been absolutely stuffed by the French. He'd given away $7 billion of our rebate in return for nothing. Oliver, thanks for the call. Good to chat about old times with Tony Blair. I hadn't intended to. James is a new caller from Kingswood. Good morning, James.
Nigel, hi, good to speak to you.
Good morning. So,
and trust me, just sorry to interrupt, Nigel, before I start. If you're the only person that Tony Blair has ever shouted at in public, trust me, take that as a very, very big compliment.
Well, I'll do my best to, James. He wasn't very happy with me at all. I got to tell you, bags under his eyes,
listen, before
and he was feeling rough.
Tony Blair, let me just ask you one question. Did I actually hear you correctly? Did you just say that Sajid Javid has stated that he's going to bring down migration levels by 80%.
He's going to slash EU immigration by 80%. It may reduce to...
Does he put a timescale on that?
Oh, well, he'll do it. He'll do it 2 weeks...
Does he stipulate a timescale?
No, he doesn't.
Say by when?
No, he doesn't, but he says that basically people coming in will need to earn at least £30,000 a year.
Okay, and does he say that... Does he stipulate that we can hold him to account if that doesn't happen?
Oh,
even without a timescale?
No, I think it's, in the context of this morning's debate, it's just advisory, really, I think, is the way that I am sick to death, James. I'm sick to death of being told this rot by politicians who don't even intend to carry it out. It's all to curry favour. No, none whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Right, now look, come on. Back to the point. Is Mrs May right to have used this very, very strong language about Tony Blair?
Yes, she is, and just to start with, I'm no fan of Theresa May, far from it. In fact, very, very far from it. I don't think she should be there. I think she should have gone a long time ago, and I think she's particularly derisory for our Brexit intentions, etc. So I think she should have gone a long time ago. But that said, that doesn't detract from the fact, sorry, I'm trying to keep a straight face, but I find it very difficult. Every time I mention the two words Tony Blair, I find it difficult to keep a straight face. I think one of the particularly strong points for the entire Brexit movement is every time Tony Blair enters the fray in any way, shape or form, even if his face is simply seen on a magazine or a newspaper picture or on the television, instantly it makes people want to vote in the opposite direction.
Well, James,
okay?
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
So for me, he's a fantastic tool for Brexit.
I
my opinion.
agree. James, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to move on to Bev, a new caller from Fleetwood. Good morning, Bev.
Morning, Nigel.
So, is Mrs May right to say... Because Mrs May says she's doing the best for Britain. Well, that's questionable. But she is standing firmly against a second referendum, isn't she?
And I hope that it keeps that way very, very much. I mean, I've never phoned before, never phoned into anything in my life before. But I just feel so strongly. So it's hard to describe the way I feel over what is happening in our country. For me, and it was a question about May that really triggered me to call. This is the first time that May, that I know, that she has ever spoken out against this now with Tony Blair. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, about time, well overdue. As far as I'm concerned, this rhetoric and these behaviours now from our politicians that have voted in, that are, for me, going against, well, some of them are doing what they said, but a lot of them are voted in and going against what the people voted them in on. This rhetoric and these behaviours, had they been clamped right in the early days, because we voted in, obviously a big Leave voter, we voted to leave. Very, very clear to me, everyone I know and all them Leave voters out there, what exactly we voted for, as it was for the Remainers. Absolutely crystal clear. It was made clear. All the
How angry, Bev? How angry do you feel? I mean, you know,
I am. At times now, I'm looking at, I'm thinking, I want somebody to be standing, somebody to be fighting for us. This is the first sign of anything that I have seen her do, where she's done that. It's in print in it this morning as well.
Okay,
where she's condemning him now.
Yeah, so you're pleased. You're pleased about it. Good, Bev. I thank you. And of course, Fleetwood, which used to have a huge fishing fleet, and now finds that much of the Irish Sea is full of Belgium and French boats. Real issue. Bev, thank you for your call and for your passion. And that's what's happening, folks. People who've never engaged before in public meetings or LBC phone-ins are getting involved. You're listening to the Sunday edition of the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's 11:30 and time for the news with Philip Chrysikos.
Tony Blair is describing Theresa May as irresponsible after the Prime Minister accused the former Prime Minister of undermining her Brexit negotiations. Mrs May says his call for a second referendum is an insult to the office he once held, but Mr Blair says he was speaking out in the national interest and in the interests of democracy. A 5-year-old boy has died in hospital after being rescued from a house fire in Nottinghamshire. An 8-year-old girl and a woman of 33 also died in the fire yesterday. Chester Zoo says it is overwhelmed by offers of support after a large fire yesterday. It started a £50,000 fundraising appeal this morning. So far it's raised £20,000. LBC weather. Snow clearing Scotland. Cold with showers spreading west to east across England and Wales. A high of 11 degrees.
LBC.
Why are we so drawn to the sea? Where does it take you? Discovering distant shores with hidden treasures? Dining and dancing your way across calm waves? And indulgent service on board Queen Mary too. Escape the everyday, every day. Discover more at cunard.com.
You know that feeling you're getting about the Liverpool United game? That's me. I'm your hunch. I'm pumped because this one's going to shake up the season. Two of the big boys, head to head. And as if that's not exciting enough, Betway are offering bet 5, get 10 on it. So listen up. There are a lot of things I need to talk to you about.
Heed your hunch with Betway. Get a £10 free bet when you bet £5 on any Bet Your Way market on Liverpool United.
Single bets at odds of 2 to 1 or over. 18 plus. T's and C's apply. Bet the responsible way.
This weekend at the perfume shop, we're inviting you to enjoy buy one, get 50% off second item on perfume. Yes, that's right. Buy one, get 50% off second item at the perfume shop. And we'll gift wrap both items for free. Offer subject to terms and conditions. See our website for details. Ends 16th of December.
As Theresa May holds on to power after the no-confidence vote, what now for her leadership of the Conservative Party? And the delayed Brexit deal vote? And Britain's progress out of the EU? In politically confusing times, turn to The Telegraph for clarity. Subscribe now at telegraph.co.uk.
Working at a 24-hour BP, you see some pretty strange things. 3 a.m. last night, a guy runs in his dressing gown. He sees our 2-for-1 on batteries, nearly cries with relief. Then he whips out a lightsaber and some wrapping paper and wraps it right there on the floor. Talk about last minute.
With 10p off per litre when you spend £20 in store and tons of great deals, it's surprising what you'll find at BP M&S this Christmas. Subject to availability while stocks last. Offer ends 3rd of January 2019. Participating service stations only. Terms and conditions apply. See bp.com for details.
Wrapping up warm and setting off for a good country walk. Winter is the perfect time for creating great stories. So start yours with Cotswold Outdoor. Right now, you can save up to £50 on selected jackets. Discover everything you need for your winter adventure with up to £50 off jackets from the best brands, including Berghaus, The North Face and Mountain Equipment. Cotswold Outdoor. Find your local store at cotswoldoutdoor.com.
Escape the everyday, every day. With a little extra from us. Discover more at cunard.com.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Tony Blair weighs in once again and pushes for a second referendum, says no one voted to leave on WTO rules. Oh, is that right, Mr Blair? Well, I think a lot of people did vote for a clean Brexit. A lot of people voted to say, good, we just want to be out of this. Mrs May hits back hard, and I'm struggling at the moment, folks, to find any of you to ring up and tell me that Mr Blair has a right to do this. Might it be better if he kept quiet, in your opinion? I don't know. And lots of comment on this and what we discussed in the previous hour. John says to me on Facebook, I think you're great, Nigel, but you're being defeatist. A second referendum is not an option. We've had one and that's it. A lot of people in the 30s, John, said, no. We don't need to listen to that nasty Mr Churchill. He's awful. He's a warmonger. We've had a war. It's over. There'll never be another one. And there was. And kind of we found ourselves actually pretty ill prepared for it. And my argument to leavers is do not trust our political class. Forcing a second referendum would be the ultimate betrayal, but it's what, John, I think is going to happen. And, hey, if I'm wrong, what have we lost in getting ready and preparing? Because the other side really, really are. Maureen says, with 103 days left to go, I feel we are no closer to leaving the EU than 2 years ago. Does feel a bit like that some days, Maureen, although the legislation is in place. So, talking of Mr Blair, Ian in Huntingdon is a caller. We've spoken before. Good morning, Ian.
Hello, Nigel. I think Theresa May. It's actually quite nice to see something that at least looks vaguely like passion from her.
Yes, I agree.
I think it's about time. But I think the thing with Tony Blair, what he's doing is almost as good for the Leave camp as if Barack Obama showed up to repeat his entreaties that we should never leave under any circumstances.
Yes,
I think what we've got to remember is that this is a direct result of many of Tony Blair's actions, right? Not just the open-door immigration policy. I think if you combine open-door immigration with the national minimum wage, with the fact that he constantly failed to understand that an entitlements-based benefit system compared to the contribution-based benefit system in the rest of Europe was always going to suck in a huge number.
Oh, no, come on, Ian. They told us it would lead to an extra 13,000 a year. Do you remember?
Well, yes, and he also told us that he was going to give away some of our rebates to reform the Common Agricultural Policy.
$7 billion.
And I seem to remember he also wanted to join the Euro with Gordon Brown.
Oh, yes.
Thank goodness that stopped him. I mean, Tony Blair has been wrong on almost every major issue that I can think of to do with the European Union. Mm-hmm. The other thing, I think it's a bit rich for Tony Blair to go on about advisory referenda, given that I believe it was him that had the referendum for the Welsh Assembly, which had a majority of 50.9% on a vote of less than 50% of the voting population.
It was 7,000 votes, Ian, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
So I can't imagine. This is. I suspect Tony Blair is actually racked with guilt, and is desperately like the kid who's been offered the part of third tree in the nativity play, who's desperately jumping up and down at the back, waving his arms around, saying, "Look at me, look at me."
I like that.
The other thing, while I've got you, if you don't mind me digressing very slightly, the constant whining about just-in-time deliveries. I don't understand why Caroline Lucas, who appears to be campaigning for Remain, isn't saying, well, actually, this is a great benefit from the Green Lobby because we should be buying more things locally.
Locally produced food and goods. I get the point, Ian. Thank you. You made me laugh about the nativity play. That was very, very good. Jean says, who earns 30,000? Because most nurses don't. Javid needs to get into the real world. Well, what are you saying, Jean, is, we will only take, high-skilled, high-earning people, but because it'll never happen, don't worry about it. Don't take it seriously, really. Anyone siding with Blair for a second vote is a traitor to their country. All right, Keith, steady on. It's Sunday morning. Let's go to Steve, a new caller in Kensington. Steve, good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigel.
So the great Blair is intervening. Do you think do you think he's actually doing some good for the debate, or do people just despise him now?
I think he's just a pathological liar.
Oh dear!
He's got absolutely no clout. He took us to a war, and then he shut the door and walked away. I said, but more importantly, I think what's really getting me this morning is as regard the this EU thing.
Yeah.
We are all my life. Okay, I'm just a cab driver. I've hated bullies all my life. My life, and I'm anti-bullying. Anyone who doesn't think that Germany and France are not pulling our pants down in a playground and bullying us is mistaken.
Oh, it's there for all to see, Steve, isn't it? I mean, were you?
It's there to see, and listen. As a country, we're a fantastic country. I voted to remain. I must tell you.
Okay.
But I will vote because of this bullying to leave, and I'll never ever, if we have another referendum, okay, which would be disgusting, I will vote to leave, and I'll never ever vote again, ever.
Steve, thank you for your passion. And by the way, please don't say I'm just a cab driver. I love our cab drivers in London. They're fantastic. Thank you very much indeed for your call. And it is interesting, and perhaps a point to ponder for some on the Remain side, that actually the sheer level of arrogance and bullying and the way they've disrespected the leader of our nation, whoever he or she, doesn't matter, has made a big difference. There are plenty of people out there who think it's just all too much. Tony Blair wants the Brussels top job. Simple as that, Nigel. Happy Christmas from Twickenham. Well, Does Tony Blair want to be in charge of Europe? I thought perhaps he had global ambitions. I don't know. Let's go to Manchester and speak to Richard. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, sir. I'd just like to say about this Blairite thing.
Yeah.
Blair is not a big word with regards to him. The bully boy Campbell, who's probably got an earpiece as we're speaking now and talking about this thing into Blair's ear. And that Lord Adonis, my God, if he comes on and says, I want another referendum, I want another referendum, I want another referendum, that's all he ever says. And he was boasting that he'd been on that march with... Oh, I don't know how many people. They said 700,000, but it was never confirmed.
No.
And he'd spoken to at least 3,000 people, and this is his own words, and he now has 3 million followers who are prepared to follow him. That man should not be in the House of Lords, and I hope the Lords are taking this as I'm speaking and think, well...
Well, yeah. Richard, I have twice had Lord Adonis here, sitting opposite me in the studio on Sunday mornings, and I'll get him back on again, and we'll make sure, Richard, that you're fast track through to speak to Lord Adonis and ask questions. And
I'd love to.
No, absolutely. And I tell you what, actually, to be fair to him, he will take your call and answer it. Well, he may not answer it, but he'll take your call and do his best to answer it. Richard, should Blair just pack up and go away?
He won't do that, will he? Now he's got this money. I mean, there's billionaires now coming on saying, we will start a new party. We're sorry about what's happened with all the people. We're talking billionaires. He's rubbish. He's only got a few million in the
bank. Richard, thanks very much indeed. Come on, someone out there tell me that Tony Blair's a top chap and we should listen to him. 0345 6060 973. Never mind a second referendum. I'm still waiting for Blair's first referendum on the EU Constitution. Blair promised us this, says Laurie from Plymouth. He promised it in 2004, in the middle of the European elections. Why? Because UKIP suddenly was hitting into double digits. They all changed their policies and promises because of the rise of the UKIP vote. Mike is a new caller from Lowestoft in Suffolk. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Nigel. Well, first of all, Tony Blair, as a private individual, has the right to say what he likes, but by being a former Prime Minister, he no longer occupies that position, so he should be more mindful of what he says and who he says it to.
Yes.
And something that's being missed by a lot of people and a lot of commentators is that at the time of the referendum, which was in fact the second referendum and not the first,
yes,
nobody, absolutely nobody, voted for, year upon year, of prevarication, negotiation or dilution.
Well, I couldn't agree more, Mike. And do you know what? I wish that point was made more often. I really do. Because it took them 9 months to trigger Article 50, a 2-year Article 50 process, a transition period, which she's now basically said will go to the end of 2021, and Barnier said could be the end of 2022. It is pathetic, Mike, isn't it?
Prevarication upon prevarication. And whoever cannot see what the end result is that they're working towards is willingly blind.
No, well, I think that's right. But I also take your point that Blair, as a former Prime Minister, does have a responsibility. I guess in his defence, Mike, he just thinks it's vital to our interests to stay inside the EU. But it's the lack of respect for the vote that gets me.
Yeah. I would never, ever thought I would hear you, Nigel Farage, ex-leader of UKIP, jumping to Tony Blair's defence.
Well, I'm not jumping to his defence, but I'm just trying to say, that, look, I honestly think, in some ways, he actually helps the Leave side. I really do. I really honestly do. Mike, I thank you. Now, Nick in King's Lynn says, there are many like myself who are phoning you, wanting to back Blair, Nigel. You are purposely only taking calls from those who want to insult him. No, Nick. Nick, 0345 6060 973. I am looking. Come on. Right. We're going to go to the break in a minute. I then want, Nick, I want you on the phone, and I want pro-Blair people on the phone. We're only taking pro-Blair calls. 0345 6060 973. If we can find them, that is. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and the time is now 11:45.
Coming up at 12 on LBC, Majid Nawaz.
Theresa May has launched a stinging attack on Tony Blair over a second referendum. Has Tony Blair got the PM rattled, or should he stay out of it?
Majid Nawaz on LBC.
Your future is here. The Global Academy. A forward-thinking state school for 14 to 19-year-olds interested in a media career. Get the very best start in your media career at a school where you can study GCSE and A-levels alongside the vocational media qualifications you need. Visit globalacademy.com to find out more.
You know that feeling you're getting about the Liverpool United game? That's me. I'm your hunch. I'm pumped because this one's going to shake up the season. Two of the big boys, head-to-head. And as if that's not exciting enough, Betway are offering Bet 5, get 10 on it. So listen up. There are a lot of things I need to talk to you about.
Heed your hunch with Betway. Get a £10 free bet when you bet £5 on any Bet Your Way market on Liverpool United.
Single bets at odds of 2 to 1 or over. 18 plus. T's and C's apply. Bet the responsible way.
As Theresa May holds on to power after the no confidence vote, what now for her leadership of the Conservative Party? And the delayed Brexit deal vote? And Britain's progress out of the EU? In politically confusing times, turn to The Telegraph for clarity. Subscribe now at telegraph.co.uk.
From the deepest brown to the milkiest beige, from 4 sugars to no sugars to raw agave nectar. Whether it's black tea, herbal tea, oolong tea, Geranium-Missora's tea, builder's tea or high tea with a fresh batch of scones or scoons, we all love a cuppa. And with a smart meter, you could save enough energy every year to boil 26,473 cups of tea. Save your energy for a good old brew. Contact your energy supplier about getting your smart meter at no extra cost. From the campaign for a smarter Britain.
Based on UK Government's projected annual savings of 2% and a 1.7 litre kettle using 2.73 kilowatt hours. Savings possible by customers measuring energy use and cutting waste. Available by 2020.
The best place for sleepyheads is in a bridge bed in bed.
We love our sleep, and even though we use them less, we do still love real shops where we can get real customer service. Get the best of both. Buy your next new bed at Bridge Bedding. An incredible choice of beds and mattresses from the best-known brands in the UK, ensuring a great night's sleep. Bridge Bedding, Leigh-on-Sea, Hornchurch, or online at bridgebedding.com.
The best place for sleepyheads is in a bridge bed in bed.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Theresa May slaps down Tony Blair's intervention, says it actually really does discredit to his office and to the people that he once served. I'm asking whether that's right, and many of you think that May is right to say that, and I think that's absolutely right. So I'm now looking for pro-Blair messages and callers. Oh, Lillian Bolton says, he is batting for the nation. Pity it's not our nation. No, sorry, that one doesn't work. Come on, we must... Oh, here we are. Jim says, you don't like Tony Blair being involved because he doesn't agree with you. When Trump is intervening, you love it. Jim, the only reason I support Trump intervening is because Barack Obama did before him. Looking for Blair supporters. Robert is a new caller from Epsom. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning. How are you?
I am very well. Come on, tell me that Blair's doing the right thing.
Well, I think Blair can do what he likes. I think you're always one bleating for democracy, and democracy allows free speech, and yes. He's allowed to do what he likes. But I do have a question for you.
Robert, can I just ask you, does that include colluding with Mr Barnier and Juncker and other prime ministers and presidents around Europe, whilst the British elected prime minister is in a negotiation which he, Mr Blair, is undermining? Does he really have the right to do that?
Yeah, I think so, and I would as you would.
No, I don't. I don't think it's right.
You talk of collusion. You talk of collusion. God knows what collusion is going on in the world today.
Right.
But I do have a question for you, if you don't mind.
What, on this subject or on something?
On Brexit.
On Brexit, yeah, go on then.
Well, as far as Theresa May is concerned, I think she's between a rock and a hard place, because whatever she decides or whatever is agreed or whatever is not agreed is not what the population wants. If you were her, how would you handle it from now on in?
I would have got up on Thursday evening and said, I will not, as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, be spoken to by people like you, least of all the unelected of you in the room. We've tried and tried and tried. I've given and given and given. I came tonight looking just for a little bit of something back. You refused to give it. We are now cancelling this withdrawal agreement. It will not be ratified. We are leaving on World Trade Organization terms on the 29th of March and walked out of the room, which would have led already, Robert, to pressure on Merkel and Macron from German car makers and French wine producers like you can't believe.
Yes, and I would agree with you, and I would agree with the action that you're proposing if you were the Prime Minister. However, the people of this country then need to know how they're going to suffer, because they will, in financial terms.
Why?
On going to a WTO. How long is it going to take to negotiate a WTO agreement?
Well, the rules are there already.
What duties are going to be imposed on us, as well as us imposing on them, Europe? What duties are going to be imposed both ways to keep trade going?
Well, if they Robert, if they charge tariff, we charge tariff. But where I would agree with you, and where we almost certainly probably will still need some form of transition, is all the evidence, Robert, we get is that some within government, such as Liddington, such as the Chancellor, have done their utmost to make sure that our preparations for a negotiated no deal are as pitiful as they possibly can be. And so, we're not in good order. We have not done as much of the work, Robert, as we needed to do. I thank you very much indeed for your call. Right, now, Nick texted me from King's Lynn. Nick, you're on the line.
Hello, Nigel. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm not a Blairite. Any circumstances, it doesn't matter whether it's Blair saying it or Santa Claus is absolutely right on Brexit. So what are you worried about? What are you just because he's Prime Minister, he was a former Prime Minister, doesn't make any difference whatsoever. He's an individual.
If the leader of
everybody else.
No, Nick. Here's the point I'm making.
Yes.
No, here's the point I'm making. Here, bear with me.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister has not just got a referendum result behind her, she's got a general election result behind her. And she's going
irrelevant.
Sorry?
Totally irrelevant. A general election is not a referendum. A general election covers a lot of things. Plus, she called it within 13 months, so that makes a complete nonsense.
Well, let me try one more time. The Prime Minister has a referendum result and a general election, and she's going to negotiate with a group of foreign governments and a Brussels-based bureaucracy, and she's negotiating as she sees it. I may disagree, but as she sees it, in the interests of the nation. Does it make sense that a former Prime Minister is shuttling back and forth between this country and meeting the very same people, trying to undermine what the British Prime Minister is doing? Is that a reasonable thing to do?
He's not trying to undermine her at all. He's talking sense. He's not trying to collude with anybody.
Hang on. Of course he's undermining her, isn't he? She's made it clear she doesn't support a referendum. He's doing all he can to get us a second referendum. Isn't that making her position virtually impossible?
Well, what's the fundamental problem about wanting another referendum?
Because we've had one, Nick.
Theresa May is undermining herself. Well, anybody can have a referendum and say leave without knowing they have to do anything for the next 2.5 years. Why do you think this has lingered on? Because it's not that simple. You can't just leave like that. If we had a proper leave manifesto in 2016 where all these problems that we're encountering now were on the table, then that would have been different. Yes, it would have been a proper referendum. This is exactly why Blair and many other people within the Conservative Party as well are calling for another referendum. Simply where the issues are on the table.
Right. So you think Blair is right then to say we should have a second referendum?
Yes.
Fine, OK. But is he right to go and undermine the Prime Minister who was negotiating with Mr Barnier by going and meeting him repeatedly?
Well, if people think he's undermining the Prime Minister, that's politics. He's not going out deliberately to undermine the Prime Minister. He's putting his views and he's using his influence as a former Prime Minister who was elected 3 times. I've always said he was the best Conservative Prime Minister, which the Tories never had anyway.
Right, so you think you think it's legitimate what he's doing?
Yeah, well, it's not illegal, is it?
No, I didn't say it was illegal. I didn't suggest that. Nick, thank you for texting and calling. You've made the pro-Blair argument. I don't agree with it, but we've heard the argument. But the point is, and Nick's original text saying I was barring pro-Blair callers. I'm not. If you're pro-Blair, 0345 6060 973. Graham is a new caller from Bognor Regis. Good morning, Graham.
Hello, Nigel. Thanks for taking my call.
Now, come on, tell me Blair's a great bloke and he's doing a good job.
No, I'd love to, but unfortunately I agree with a lot of your other callers that the result of the referendum is because of Blair's policies at the start of his premiership.
Yep.
When he just allowed people to walk into our country, like you said, when he gave $7 billion away to the French and this, that, and the other. But fundamentally, on the topic of whether he should be contradicting Theresa May, ultimately Tony Blair seems to love Europe so much. They should take him to The Hague as a war criminal. I mean, at the end of the day, he took us into a conflict where he didn't have parliamentary backing. We've still got soldiers that are suffering with PTSD.
Graham, there's a huge argument about that. We're not debating that now, although it is ironic to hear Alistair Campbell and others calling the rest of us liars. Graham, thank you for that. Nigel's on the line from Droitwich in Worcestershire. New caller, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel. I wish to God you were Prime Minister.
Well, that's very sweet of you. Thank you. There's a lot of people in Westminster who are delighted I'm not, because if I was, we'd be out of the European Union by now. But hey, so do you agree with me that Mr. Blair is undermining the Prime Minister's negotiations?
He certainly is.
And how's it taken Theresa so long to stand up and say this?
Well, I think it's about time that somebody stood up to Mr. Blair. He's an arrogant man, and I think he did a lot of damage when he was Prime Minister.
And he's calling for a second referendum, and do you think in the end he might just get that, though?
I hope not. But it's about time somebody stood up to him, and I fully support Theresa May.
Very good. No, I agree with that. Thank you. Moving on, Phil's a new caller from Newcastle-under-Lyme. Good morning to you.
Morning, Nigel. What a pleasure just to talk to you.
Well, very good to have you
on. Lionel Blair. Tony Blair is nothing but a hypocrite. I mean, I seem to remember when he was in power, he promised the people of this country a referendum on membership of the EU, and then very conveniently didn't.
Yes, I remember that too. So, really, you're not going to listen to what he's got to say?
I have no interest whatsoever what he's got to say.
And do you feel a little bit... I know we shouldn't feel sorry for our leaders, but it is pretty tough for Theresa May, isn't it? Going to Brussels and being undermined by a former Prime Minister meeting the very self-same people.
I agree. I mean, I'm not pleased with what Theresa May has done, but we can well do without meddlers like him.
Yeah, OK, Phil, I'm going to let you go. You mentioned Lionel Blair. He was 90 the other day. I've got time very quickly for one last caller. Sam, a new caller from Ipswich. Good morning, Sam.
Hi, Nigel.
Hello there.
I've told to be brief, so I was going to say the best description I ever read, which I think was in the Telegraph about Tony Blair, is that he is the jobby that just won't flush.
Right. Go on. Go on, explain.
You know what a jobby is?
Yeah, go on, explain to the audience. Go on.
No, I'm sure it was a Scotsman who wrote it. But I thought it was a good description.
OK, fine, Sam, thank you. And, you know, Tony Blair is a citizen of the world, says it all. His 045 mass immigration policy adversely affected ordinary working-class people. I was a Remain voter, but I'm seriously thinking of voting Leave if we have a second referendum. Good luck. And I tell you, it was that opening of the doors in 2004-05 that allowed those evil Eurosceptics like me to link open borders with bureaucracy in Brussels, and that's why we got the Leave vote. Thank you, Tony Blair. Keep speaking, Tony Blair. You're the best thing for the Leave side ever. I'll be back tomorrow night at 6. At 3 this afternoon, it's Ian Payne. But up next, it's Majid Nawaz.
Thank you, Nigel. Coming up, more than 200 campaigners have written a letter suggesting that the Bank of England should actively seek somebody from an ethnic minority background to appear on its banknotes. Is it time for non-white representation on our banknotes? Before that, some London tube drivers have broken the £100,000 a year pay barrier, overtaking many airline pilots, yet they plan on striking again this weekend. Are striking tube drivers ripping us all off? But first, Theresa May has launched a stinging attack on one of her predecessors, accusing Tony Blair of insulting the British people and the office of Prime Minister by undermining Brexit talks with calls in Brussels for a second referendum. Has Tony Blair got the PM rattled, or should he have stayed out of it?